right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to the newest episode of Last Caw, Life Experiences of Frater Crow. I am Frater Crow of the Coterie of Samil, Arcane, Occult Order, Celestial Oddities Radio, and Celestial Oddities Paraseekers Paranormal Research Group. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Feel free to click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platforms you're tuning in from. Helps move us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in loop with the new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives of all of our shows. Uncovering the Underground, Knights of the Nephilim, Pair of Normal Guys podcast, this right here, Last Caw, and Tenebrius Caniculum, or Tenebrium Caniculus Obscuritatum, which is a show on occultism. So, by doing that, it'll give you access to all of those shows, a lot of great content, hundreds of hours of different episodes, topics, discussions, guests, interviews, you name it. Last Caw, if you're a return guest, you know what it's about. Thank you for coming back. If you are new to us, welcome. This is a show, and I apologize, I've run out of contacts. I've been wearing my glasses lately. That's like two giant screens. Can't really see my face. But if you are new to the show, Last Caw is simply me telling extraordinary experiences that I've encountered throughout my life in a very unrelenting, unapologetic, and unfiltered way. It's usually very funny. It's engaging. So feel free to comment. I'll throw your comments up on the screen. If you have questions, feel free to ask. It's just an open discussion type show where on Thursday nights, whenever I'm able, I jump in with you guys. We hang out for a couple hours rather, and shoot the breeze. I apologize for missing the last couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was packing for my trip to the Octagon House in Circleville, Ohio. We spent 2 days there on a paranormal research excursion. And last week, I was on Exploring the Unknown, which is another paranormal podcast. I was the special guest on that episode. Make sure you check those guys out at Exploring the Unknown on Facebook and YouTube. I would try Facebook first so you can get their proper links, because you might find other pages using that name. But the Facebook should come up. Great episode, great conversations. Thank you to those gentlemen for having me on. Cheers. All right. So tonight we got two stories that we're going to be talking about. And the first one's going to be called A Poltergeist Kind of Party. And it's an interesting story. The second one's going to be called Whispers in the Dark. So, stick around for both of those. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. And feel free to leave comments as you would like. But we'll talk about both of them really regarding my childhood home. Some of you guys who are fans of my shows and have been following me for some time have heard stories about the house that I grew up in, which, is one of the most paranormal locations, if not the most paranormal location I've ever been to. But this is over the span of my early life. So it wasn't like you go one night to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum or to St. Albans Sanatorium. You have a lot of activity, and I'm sure if you lived there, you'd have tons of stories. But in my house growing up, over a span of, 19 years, the amount of things that I experienced there changed me forever. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. So going to stick around for a little bit and wait for some people to jump in, and then we'll go ahead and begin those stories. If you've missed our last couple episodes, let me pull them up and I'll tell you, a little bit about what you missed on those. Bear with me here. My phone closed out the application. I did have it up at one point. All right, so last episode we did was on delusions of grandeur, which was a very important episode about how occultists and practitioners will start to practice and they get one little breadcrumb of power or insight or gnosis, and all of a sudden they are a god. They are a master sorcerer. They are an adept. They're the epistemists, and all these other wild things that they are not. Because what happens in occultism is as you start to poke through the veil and absorb those energies that lie on the other side, it's overwhelming for most people who are not tempered in the fire and just cast themselves right into it. Instead of it hardening them for battle, it makes them brittle and they break. So we talked a little bit about that, which is an important episode. Make sure you check it out. One before that, we talk about The Sky is Burning. And this was about an experience I had about roughly 4.5 years ago of a UFO I seen, the only one I've ever seen, after work one day in Allegheny County. Actually, Allegheny, no, that'd be West Washington County. Excuse me, I'm mixing up my counties. That was Washington County, Pennsylvania. It's like on the borderline between the two. The one before that was I Want to Give You My Skin. And for anybody who heard that episode, that's a wild one. I advise, if you're going to listen to any of the three I just mentioned, go back and check that one out. That was about an experience that I had when I used to perform quite often. I was a hip-hop artist called Skippy Yickum. I have about 6 full-length professional albums out, 8 music videos, rap battles, all that. And I played a show where a guy was trying to rip off his own flesh and offer it to me as an offering, which was quite interesting. It's not something you see every day. Hey, Travis, what's up, brother? Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. So, yeah, those are the last couple episodes, and I think before that we had Justice is a Dirty Game, talking about 2 different fights I got into in my life where they became very dirty, mud, puddles, yeah, you name it. And the wild situations that happened. One, Justice is a Dirty Game, was me trying to stand up for the honor of a woman that I didn't know. And, sometimes doing nice things is a kick in the nuts. And then the other one was just called Porta Potty Beatdown, which was about being at a concert and fighting a drunk guy. Move my mic a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me okay. Like I said, I'm sorry for the shine off the glasses. It's another couple minutes. We'll stick around. I usually like to wait till about the 10-minute marker, bullshit a little bit. Excuse me. And then we kind of kick it off. So see if anybody else jumps in. If I look tired, it's because I am. The last 2 weeks have kicked my ass. But I have one more day and I'm off for about 9 days. So I am looking forward to it. Have some vacation time, going on vacation with my wife and kids, looking at getting away for a little while, enjoying ourselves, de-stressing, and having a good time. So one more day of work. We keep counting down as the days go. We're like 5 more, 4 more, and now we're down to the point of 1 more. So it's a good feeling. Finish up tomorrow and get the hell out of here. But before I went, I wanted to make sure I spent time with you guys because, as I said, 2 weeks ago, had to pack for a paranormal trip. Last week had someone else's show to be on. This week I'm here, but next week I'm out of town. So in a month's time, I'll only have 1 episode of Last Caw. So I wanted to make sure if I had the opportunity that I jumped on and hung out with you guys for an evening. All right, we're around the 10-minute marker. So go ahead and start telling you guys a little bit about tonight's episode. So as some of you are probably aware, I grew up in a home that was extremely paranormal. My first experience was at roughly 5 years of age when I seen a full body apparition of a old man in my childhood home in the hallway standing there staring at me. And didn't know at the time, it was the first time I'd ever seen a spirit, but didn't know at the time that that would be the opening doorway for the paranormal realm for me for the rest of my life. And that from that moment forward, I would begin to have uncountable amount of experiences. Now, when I say my house was haunted, I don't just mean like, okay, there's some strange things that happen, there from time to time, that anybody can try to say, well, there's weird things that happen in my house. No, my house was the one known throughout my town. Friends, acquaintances, strangers knew of my house, and sometimes I'd be outside and people would say, you live in this house? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I've heard about this house. So we lived in a house that people knew about, talked about, feared. There was people that wouldn't come near our house, that literally would walk across the street and cross, to not be in front of it, would not hang out near it. There was people that would peek in our windows sometimes because they were curious of the old haunted mansion. that we grew up in. Now, when I say mansion, the reason I bring mansion up is we grew up in Ford City, Pennsylvania, and PPG was the largest glass factory in the world at that time, right along the river in Ford City. PPG has since obviously become very, very known, moved to Pittsburgh. They have a skyscraper there. One of the craziest buildings in Pittsburgh is this PPG place. But they used to be in the side of the river in Ford City. Everyone had a house that worked there, and a lot of them were smaller cabin-style houses or small one-unit single-family homes. My house was an old Victorian home who at the time in the early 1900s was considered a mansion, even though in today's sense of the word it certainly was not a mansion. That's the house that I grew up in. A lot of history there. Digging up the backyard, we found piles and piles. I'm talking wheelbarrows full of horse bones. And the original house was built in the early 1900s, and there was no indication of horses. So these horses predated that time to when Ford City wouldn't have even been an industrial town along the river and would have been some type of farmland or wildland. And there's not a lot of history that I know about that, but tons of bones we found and a lot of other strange items. Now, as a young kid, I started to see spirits, as I said, after that first incident, and it became constant. It was not uncommon to be sitting on the couch watching TV, and out of the corner of your eye, out of your peripheral vision, to see someone moving around over on the side of the room, and if you turn and look at it, it would disappear. Now, it wasn't just your eyes playing tricks on you, because sometimes you could look forward, but be looking out of your periphery to kind of watch it and act like you weren't, and you could catch beings moving around the room doing different things. And this became something that all of us in my family experienced, but certainly myself to a high degree. And we had what I called the creeper, who liked to lean around doorways. He constantly would lean around the doorway. You'd see his head, you'd see his hands, you'd see the upper part of his body, and then he'd lean back. Sometimes if you look quick enough, you'd literally see him hurry up and pull back, and then he'd be gone. But we've seen this thing tons and tons of times. I mean, I would have to say over my span of 19 years living there, I'd seen that thing probably 200 times. The other spirit I've seen a lot of was of a dog, which was very interesting. I've never seen animal spirits except for this dog that was in the house that I grew up in. So started having a lot of experiences, lights coming on and off, noises of people walking upstairs when I'd be the only one home, knocking, whispers, all kinds of different things. So I'll start with whispers in the dark, even though I have that listed as second. I would like to start with that because it's kind of a good prelude into it. I talked about in past episodes of other shows that prior to me knowing anything about paranormal research or investigating, prior to me knowing what an EVP is, electronic voice phenomena, I had an old school, like 1 foot by 1 foot tape recorder. Bought it at a yard sale when I was a kid. I really wanted it. It was either my mom or my grandma bought it for me. And I would record everything. I would record me talking different thoughts that I had and ideas, things I was pondering on. I would record me, reading out poems that I wrote, me rapping, me playing guitar, me singing, you name it. I had dozens and dozens of tapes of me recording all of the stuff that was going on in my life. Well, I didn't know it until I was roughly, I would say, 15-ish. Now, what's interesting is around 14 is when I started to dabble into the occult arts and started dabbling into Satanism and reading a lot and starting to kind of do a little bit of ritual stuff, but not really. That would come a little later with my famous story we called They Came. But I can't help but feel that probably has something to do with it. Around 14, I started really reading and focusing on all these different types of spirits. And then the activity amplified. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had a recording of me. Can't remember if it was me singing or me rapping. When I first noticed it, I I was listening back to something, and I was the only one home, and I kept hearing someone talk in the background. First couple times I listened to it, I was trying to, like, when I used to rap, I would rap. I didn't write it down. I never wrote down lyrics. So I would rap it, and then I would listen back to it, and I'd perfect it, and I'd rap it again. But I'd be listening back to it over and over again, and I kept missing it the first few times, and then I all of a sudden realized, wait a second, there's someone talking in the background. And I'd listen to the beat, and I'm like, well, that's not on the beat. There's no one else here. You can hear me rapping during it, and there's another voice. Who is that? So I kept listening back, and then I was like, well, I need to start listening to other tapes. So I started going back to other tapes that I had listening, and other tapes I started catching voices on it, conversations. So then I started doing this going forward live and pressing record and started to talk. Is there anyone here right now that would like to talk? What is your name? Same thing you see nowadays, but I was doing this, 21 years ago. And it produced some good results. We started getting a lot of voices on there. Now, at the time, you got to remember, I didn't know of such a thing as an EVP. This was something that I'm just like, oh shit, I caught this miracle, on tape recorder. So I started showing people in my high school. I'd take it into classes, big ass tape recorder, slap it down on my desk in like study hall, and before the class would start, different things like that. And I'd be like, check this out, guys. Press play. People would be listening to it, and they'd hear me talking and someone answering. They're like, okay, what are we listening to? I'm like, well, that's me asking questions. Okay, yeah, we hear that. And who are you talking to? I'm like, that's the thing. I was the only one home, and I'm talking to myself, and something's answering. And then they're, what? And then the more and more we listen back, people were like, holy shit. Because you could tell at times it definitely couldn't have been me doing both voices. And that built a reputation of my house much further in my time period. I had 2 older brothers that people already knew about our haunted house. They were already grown and out of school. This was my turn. They were 7 and 8 years older than me. So when I hit high school, they had already graduated. So during my time in high school, I'm playing these recordings. By the time I was 15, 16 years old, everyone had heard something or another about the house. Like I said, people would stop, come up, talk to me. People, when I'd be at parties and stuff, were like, oh, you're the haunted kid. You're the ghost kid. You're the guy that talks to the dead. That became something I was known by. One of my monikers, I guess you could say, is like spirit whisperer, spirit talker. And that's kind of how it launched me. So Whispers in the Dark really pertains to a lot of time spent alone as a teenager in my home. My mother took care of me and my brothers. My parents were divorced. She worked a lot, so she was gone a lot. My brothers had already grown up and moved out. So a good chunk of my teenage years were me spent by myself. I had friends. I'd go hang out with them. I would let them come over from time to time, but a lot of them didn't want to come over, which pertains to our next story. And I would just spend a lot of time in that dark, old Victorian, extremely haunted home by myself talking to the dead. So that is my story of Whispers in the Dark. If you guys have any questions, anything you would like to address, please leave a comment from whatever platform you're tuning in from. We'll throw it up on the screen. We'll talk about it. Because I do have another story tonight, but we are only roughly 20 minutes in right now, and this other story can't take more than probably 20 minutes. So I would like to take some time in between to answer some questions and chit-chat with you fine folks. God, I usually have a beer or two during Last Caw, and we had a recent gathering at the house, so to keep it equal for everybody, we bought Bud Light because we knew that a lot of people would drink it. I haven't drank Bud Light in years. Oh, that's all I'll say. Oh, forgot what it tastes like. Your teen years sound way better than my teen years. I'm sorry to hear that, Travis. I mean, I don't know, man. It was unique. I had a lot of friends, would go to parties. Everyone liked me. I got along with everyone, but I was always the extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. I could go anywhere, get along with anybody, be the life of the party, but I preferred to be alone. I like to spend time by myself in my home. I secluded myself to my home, playing guitar all the time. Most of my teenage years were spent sitting playing guitar. I played for hours. I mean, I'm talking I'd wake up in the morning before school and play guitar until I had to go. As soon as I got off school, run home, play guitar until it was time to go to bed, wake up, play guitar again. So that's why I always loved being at home, because I love shredding. I love playing, my guitar. And a lot of people wouldn't want to come over to the house because they were scared of it. So that's why I was just like, fuck you guys. I'll stay in my house by myself. Um, and to this day, I like people and all, talking to people, being around people. Absolutely. But more than that, I like to be alone, to myself. Not necessarily alone. I love being around my family and everything. But sitting down here like right now talking to you guys is great. Once a week, that's a nice thing. But I don't want more than once a week. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. Going through the initial stages of fear. I think everyone has a fear of the dead because we just don't understand it. And it's something foreign to us at first. Plus, I was also going to Catholic school at that time, not as per my choice. My parents thought it was a good idea for me to go. And in a way, I'm not angry that they did because it shaped me into who I am today. I have an extensive knowledge of Christianity, of Abrahamic faiths, led me into being well versed in a background of theology of all different types of cultures, and really launched my occult knowledge, I think, all because I went to a school that I didn't want to and didn't believe in. So thanks, Mom and Dad. Um, but yeah, it was interesting seeing and experiencing these things and kind of shaping who I am, who I would become. No, we'll go ahead and jump into the next story. The next story is called A Poltergeist Kind of Party. Now, this is telling you how wild my house could and would get at times. I had a few friends over, and this was during the stage where some people were weirded out by my house, but it hadn't gotten to the point where people were like overall scared of it, but it would get there. Blessings, brother, just got here. How did you end up dealing with the entity, if that's what happened? We're getting ready to talk about the poltergeist situation, and as far as all the other spirits that I talked to over these, I just let them there. They didn't harm me. They didn't cause me any problems. I would see the creeper peeking around doorways all the time. I would see the dog run up and down the hallway. The lights would come on and off, knocking. All kinds of things would move places. So a lot of activity, but like I said, I was just explaining, I went through those initial stages of fear when I was very little, 5, 6, 7, 8. And by about 8, I think I had accepted it. This is a natural thing that happens here. It might be very foreign to other people, but this is an everyday, every week occurrence here. And I became very comfortable with it. So never really did anything to the spirit itself. The borders of your screen just tripped me out. They've actually tripped me out a couple times too, where I seen something moving in the background and like move up the screen, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. But like I said, it wouldn't be surprising. I've always been followed by spirit. So, Darian, you're welcome, man. So we're getting on to the poltergeist experience, but I want to make sure I get through your comments here. Travis said, my first apartment was extremely haunted and got me into the occult. Rituals were extremely successful, but had to move out. Love the experience and really miss that place. Yeah, I mean, when you already live in a natural ley line area where there's a lot of activity and you're doing ritual, it'll supercharge it. I mean, this place here, as if you guys have heard me, I live on the back end of a 250-acre cemetery with an additional 100 acres of wildlife refuge. So 350 acres of cemetery property, and then my house is like right there. I can look on my back door and see tombstones and headstones. There's a lot of spirits I see in the woods standing around the house. I see them standing in my backyard. They're in here in my basement, not only because my temple is off to the side here, but also because they just pass through here. It's a very high volume area. And the rituals do work extremely potent here. Now, as I was explaining, before the house became known as like a feared spot, I had a couple friends over. My buddy and his girlfriend at the time, who were very serious together. They had been together for years. They had a cat and dog type of relationship, constantly fighting. They weren't right for each other, but when you're in high school, you have that hate love. I'm not saying you don't have it other times in life, but like that, like constantly fighting. I fucking hate you. I can't stand you. And then you bang it out, and then like you back to loving each other again, and then like 3 hours later you want to kill each other. Well, that's the type of relationship they had. And they were over at my house, and we're hanging upstairs in my bedroom. No one's home. Like I said, my brothers had already grown up and moved out. My dad had already left years prior when my mom and dad got divorced. My mom was working or away for the weekend on a trip. It was just me, home alone, had my friends over. We decided we're going to party a little bit, right? So wanted to get some party favors. I had some good connections. I told them, well, hey, I don't have anything right now, but if you guys want to hang out, give me about 20 minutes. I'll make a phone call, run down the street, about 5 or 6 blocks down. I have a guy. I'll pick up what we need to, come back. We'll party for a little while tonight. All right, man. All right, absolutely, So I had the music going on the computer. I had lights going on in my room, right? I had a really cool little pad where, it was a cool teenager's room. Lights, lava lamps, fucking strobe lights, all that stuff, although the strobes weren't on. And music was coming through a little surround sound that I had with my computer. And I was like, all right, guys, I'll be back. Now, the front door of my house was below my bedroom. So, here's the front door, stairs that go up, turn over here. Here's my bedroom, right? So, if you go down, and I had a deadbolt. So, when you lock the deadbolt from my room, you could always hear the chunk and then the chunk if you unlocked it. You could hear it if my mom came home in the middle of the night, anything. You could hear that lock. So, I left. Only light really on in the house was my bedroom because they didn't plan on leaving. I asked them, do you need anything? Nope, we're good. We'll hang out right here because they were still a little scared of my house because of the lore from my place. And they're like, no, we'll just hang out in your room. No problem. But I left the bedroom door open to a pitch black hallway, right? Well, they heard me go down. They heard me deadbolt the lock and then leave. Within seconds of me deadbolting the lock and walking away, the light in my bedroom went out. The computer now is the only thing glowing with music playing. Now they're sitting there frozen because what the fuck just happened? This light just went out on its own. We know about this house. My house would get unfathomably dark. There was a darkness about my house. What I'm saying is the light didn't shine in very much from the moon, from the sun. So when the lights were out of my house, and we didn't keep a lot of night lights, I don't know why, it was dark. I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face in the hallway. When the bedroom light went out, all they seen was darkness and then the glow of this eerie computer playing heavy metal, right? Well, then the light in the hall comes on by itself. And at that point, they're like, sliding back in their chair, like, what the fuck is going on right now? And then it began to absolutely take shape. The light in my room would turn on, the light in the hallway would turn out. They would start going back and forth, flashing, doing different things, door moving a little bit. Just a little bit, enough. Someone just tapped it, but no one's there. Computer shuts off. All the lights shut off. Now they're in pitch black. They're freaking out. They're holding each other. People have asked me, well, why wouldn't they jump up and get the hell out of there and run down and go out of your front door? Well, because they were scared shitless to leave the bedroom. Even though they were in this situation where they're trapped in that room, to get out of my house, they would have to go out of that room, go the whole way down my dark hall, turn, go down these big-ass steps in the dark, go down that hallway, go through a foyer out the front door. So they decided not to. But now the lights are flashing on and off, the door's moving, computer shuts off. Craziest thing is when I got back, they heard the chunk of the door. I didn't know any of this. Chunk. It was early days of cell phones. I didn't have one. So I've also had people say, well, did they call you, tell you to get back? No, I didn't have. I think my buddy might have had one at that time. I didn't have a cell phone for years. It just was never my thing at that time. So they heard the chunk of the door. As soon as the chunk happened, my light in my room came back on. The light in the hallway went back out. The computer came back on. Now, what's weird is if the computer lost power and just went out, right? When it came back on, it should do the whole Windows reboot. We're talking back in Windows 98 in the year 2003, because I still had 98 at that time. So it didn't though. When it came back on not only to already being on, right back to where the song cut off at. It was like something shut the computer off, but didn't shut it off. When it turned it back on, it picked up right where it left off. So I walk into my house. I'm walking up my stairs. Light in my room's glowing. I got the party favors. I'm ready to fucking party with my friends. My mom's out of town. Didn't party much at my house. I always respected my mom telling me never to have parties there. But I would smoke a little bit. We'd have a couple of drinks or something. I just wouldn't throw parties. Well, I was excited. All right, we're going to have a good night, all right? I turn the hallway. I come down and walk into my bedroom. They jump up right away, shaking hysterically. And they're like, get me the fuck out of your house now. And I'm like, what happened? Get me out of here now. I'm like looking at two of my best friends, and I'm like, what did I miss? But I knew something happened, obviously, and I knew it was the house. So I escorted them down to the front door. They went out. They didn't tell me what was going on. They got straight out to their car, got in, left. No explanation. I didn't know until Monday, because once again, I didn't have a cell phone and didn't have contact with my friends the rest of that weekend. This was Friday. So all of Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, waiting to find out what in the hell happened on Friday night at my own house. Now you have to understand how disturbing that is, because at this point, I'm the only one home, right? It says, do as to always. Don't forget to remember to keep journaling on. I have no idea what the fuck that even means. Good evening, Ryan. Thank you for tuning in, brother. Oh, Jim, my old buddy's dropping some stuff here. I'll pull that up in a second because I'd like to read what he said. Now, you got to understand my kind of hesitation and anticipation that I'm like, they walk to the front door hysterical, almost crying, and they walk out the front, down my steps into the dark of the night, climb in their car and leave, right? Well, now I'm standing in the darkness of the outside on my porch, turning around and looking right back into an absolute pitch black abyss. That something just happened and I don't know what. I'm by myself, I'm 15, and my mom isn't going to be back until Monday. So I'm like, all right. And that's the type of situations that built me. Didn't kill me, but built me. So I walked right back in, shut the door, locked it upstairs into my bedroom, sat there, rolled up a joint, lit it up, smoked it, listened to some fucking heavy metal, eventually went to bed. And Monday morning came and I talked to them and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, what happened? I'm never coming to your house again. And they told me in detail, like the door was moving, the lights were coming on and off in two different rooms at one time. We felt something there fucking with us. We could feel its presence. Your computer went off and it came right back on in the same song. Fuck that. We're never coming back. And never again, to this day, neither of them had ever come back to my home. My best friend, he would not come back. In fact, when we were older and he had his car and he would pick me up, he wouldn't even pull in front of my house or park and stand in front of my house. He used to come and stand out front. We would hang out on my stoop. He would park in front of my house. Most of my friends that were also friends with him had no idea why he started parking across the street. He started parking the whole way across the street and staying over there till I went and jumped in, or he would pick a few of us up and we would leave, because he refused to come anywhere near my house. And that story of what had happened, in correlation with the fucking voices on the recorder that I already had, in lieu of everything everybody else had already heard and experienced and seen at my house, gave my house the haunted reputation that it has and had when I was younger. Let's pop up some other stories. I haven't read them yet, but a buddy of mine who I hung out extensively with in high school, my best friend, not the one in the story, but my other best friend, Jim, he's dropping some things here. He says, I remember the time you left the house and I was alone in your room. Maybe 5 minutes later, the lights in every room and hallway that I could see turned on and off and on and off many times. See, and that's Jim, and that's not the same friend I was talking about. This happened more than once. And maybe 2 minutes before you returned and opened the front door, the doorbell rang a bunch of times. Always felt things in that house. See, and I don't even know if I remember that one, Jim. That's amazing. See, folks, not making it up, not bullshitting you. When I tell you these stories, they are from the heart. They are 100% raw. As I've experienced them, I've been fortunate enough to have a very, very peculiar and action-packed life. But no, thank you, Jim, for dropping that in. Me and Jim hung out every day for years. And he spent a lot of time in that house, more so than any of friends I ever had. More than the other friend in the story, more than my other buddies. Jim would be the friend who probably spent the most amount of hours in my childhood home as a friend, not a part of the family, though always a part of my family. Hey, Britt. We are talking about my childhood home and the amount of sheer activity and spirits that were in it, the poltergeist activity. Yeah, so That's a little bit about the stories this evening, the whispers in the dark, and what I was kind of trying to come to grips with as a young kid up into a teenager. What the hell's happening here? The dead are all around me. The bones we were finding in my backyard, like I said, and there were a lot of bones. We had to dig up the backyard because the basement wall was an old stone dungeony basement, and it would leak water, so we had to dig it up and tar it on the outside and try to seal the water off. When we dug it up, we dug, a very deep hole, like a 6-foot hole, because the basement was deep in this house, and had to dig it around the whole one side of the basement. And like I said, between that L shape of the back corner of the house, we had enough to fill up probably 3 wheelbarrows full of horse bones. And like I said, any indication of that house, even from the beginning of the 1900s, there wasn't horses there. So those horses had to have been from the 1800s and from whatever was there before Ford City was there, which is very interesting. John Ford is the one who named Ford City and inhabited it. Like I said, once a booming industrial town, site of the biggest glass factory in the world. Now just a shithole with a bunch of junkie zombies running around in the desolate wasteland of what once was. Still a place that I call home because it's where I'm from, but man, does it look ravaged and beat. Though the last couple years they built a college there, they've been rebuilding homes there, they've been doing a lot to try to bring it back a little, and that's nice because fuck, about 10 years ago it was in rough shape. Britt, I mean, at this time, I was like 7, 8 whenever we dug up all these horse bones. So, you're talking almost 30 years ago. I don't have those ones anymore. Over the years of selling oddities, yeah, I had horse bones. I had a whole horse head at one point in time. If you guys don't remember seeing that, that was one of the coolest pieces I ever had. I got a lot of different bones and taxidermy. But at one point in time from Europe, I had won, along with some other pieces, this full life-sized, it was real, mounted taxidermy horse head. This thing weighed like 30 pounds. You'd pick it up and you're like, Jesus Christ. And you set it down, it was just a fucking full-blown horse head. And I kept it for a while, but it was so big I ended up selling it because it just took up too much room. Some of you guys know how much I like my oddities. This cabinet right here, you can't see it. This one right there is filled with skulls and bones. And over here we got several museum pieces from different areas of the world. Over there we have a whole oddities section as well. I've been very fortunate and humbled by my collection and things I've been a part of. I have horses. Their heads are huge. You're fucking right, they are. And I mean, obviously in life, yeah, when you're petting one, they're big, but it's also weird to hold one, like a dead one. Like I'm holding this fucking stuffed head, and I'm like, this is a horse head. I've held, buck mounts before. I've held boar heads. I've held a lot of different animals, ram heads and all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm like, a horse head is a new one for me. It's like the only time that's ever happened. Sold for some good money too. It's a cool piece. Very unique, very rare. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, things you want to address or throw out there, feel free to do so. I'll throw them up on the screen. You haven't held a stuffed horse head? Yeah, not too often. I mean, that was a first. There's a first for everything, and that was my first with a stuffed horse head. Like the Godfather scene, wake up with a fucking horse head in your bed. I could have made that happen. You know what I mean? Someone falls asleep at a party, stick this big ass horse head under a blanket. They wake up and this horse is just staring at them. Good shit. But no, I mean, the house definitely shaped who I am today from the activity that I had. As you see, like Jim's story, my buddy and his girlfriend at the time. Another guy I know, and I didn't hear this for years. A guy I know from my hometown who I haven't talked to in a very long time. I also know his older sister. And she was talking to me online at one point. And she said that he knew them about my house because he was a friend of mine when we were younger, and said he had experiences at my house as well. But he says him and his girl, I guess, who he moved away and years later came back with her, they were walking through Ford City. And he's like, you need to check this house out up here. This was a buddy of mine when we were younger. He doesn't live here anymore. His mom still does. He's like, come here. And they went up and they were peeking in my windows, apparently. They said that, like, even his girl were like, fuck this place. And they hurried up and scurried away. And she's like, yeah, and that was him and his adult with his adult wife. But that was funny to hear that people still have that lore back there, I guess. I haven't been back here in a long time. Brett says, how old? I'm not sure if you're asking how old the horse head was, how old. I'm not sure what the question's concerning. But yeah, I mean, it was an extremely odd place. The basement light, one odd fact, and it wasn't electricity, we had it checked. The basement light every day for a couple years was on. You'd go to bed, we would make sure it's out when we went to bed. The whole family would go to bed. We'd wake up in the morning. You could guarantee 9 out of 10 times you came down, opened up the basement door, and the light to the basement was on. The basement was unique. All stone, old fucking walls. And like I said, all those horse bones were buried along that wall. But all these stone old walls, there was an old bathroom in the back corner that when I was very young, like 4 years old, it still worked. Over the years, it stopped, and my parents never fixed it. No one wanted to go down there and take a shit. It was the Pittsburgh basement, right, where you just have a toilet downstairs. No sink, no nothing, just a shitter. And stone walls, and that was it. There was nothing down there, just old shelves, stone walls, stone floors, a couple drains. And as a punishment, you guys might think this fucked up, and it is kind of in a way. But once again, I don't actually blame my mom for it. I actually thank her because it shaped me into who I am. Do people live in your childhood home? My mom still lives there. We've been in the house now for 40 plus years as far as a family. She bought it a few years before I was born. How old was you when you knew you was seeing spirits? 5. This is my first experience. Been seeing them ever since, or experiencing them ever since to some fashion or another. But when I was bad when I was a kid, spanking me didn't do anything. At first it did, but then you get older and like it didn't actually hurt. So like, oh no, please don't spank me. Oh. And then like, it was like, go ahead, because it doesn't fucking hurt. So my mom had to think of a different way to punish me. And when I was real young, because of the experiences I had in my house, like I said, 5, 6, 7, and 8, those ages roughly, I was still scared of the spirits. I couldn't understand what I was seeing. I was still going to Catholic school. I was being told these things were fucking the devil and all kinds of evil shit, even though I didn't believe that. I was scared of them because I didn't understand them. And being bad a lot and spanking not working, my mom decided that a good way to punish me would be, if you were bad, you have to sit for 2 minutes on the basement steps with the basement door shut, door locked, lights out. If you cry, whine, pound on the door, create a fuss, you add time on to your sentence. Now, I know a lot of people are like, what the fuck? Because it is kind of weird, right? It's kind of a subliminal psychological torture right there. Thanks, Mom. But I would be terrified. When I was really young, I remember being locked down there, and I would be terrified. I'd be staring down into this pitch darkness, and I would hear things crawling around, like shit being touched and moving down there, and I'm just staring into the darkness as like a 6-year-old. Like, and over time, then I became connected to it. Let's say. There was times where I literally could feel and see them creeping up towards the stairs towards me, expecting me. What is this thing? Now he's in our home. And eventually I stopped fearing it and I embraced it. And I sat down there and I'm like, here I am, talk to me. And had more and more experiences and more and more experiences. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that I heard them. I'd never heard them speak, only seen them, felt them, experienced lights and shit like that. And then as a teenager, like I said, listening back to me rapping or playing guitar, I can't remember which one, I heard someone talking in the background when no one was home and it was the middle of the night. And that's when I started scanning those tapes and found out all these voices. And then eventually TV shows and stuff started coming out. And they're like, electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, when you capture a spirit on tape recorder. I'm like, other people know about this? This is crazy. I discovered this 5 years ago. And obviously I wasn't the first person. I'm just saying that to me, I didn't know anybody else that knew about it. I didn't know it was a real thing. Yep, Britt, she sent me to the basement and locked me in the basement. Now, folks, before you judge too much, it was a different time. And I was very unruly. So, but like I said, I grew up to become a black priest. So, go figure, Mom. Sent me to Catholic school, tried to scare me straight by locking me in a basement. I grew up to be a devil worshiper who talks to spirits and travels the country doing paranormal research. Go figure. Yeah, Travis, damn. Kind of messed up. Britt says, we all grow up differently. That we do. I made friends with the fear. And that's the thing. I mean, fear is an illusion, folks. We only fear fear. We fear fear. Does that make sense? We are scared of what we don't know. So is what we don't know scary? Not necessarily. We don't know it. So we cast this projection of, ooh, it's something foreign to what I should be talking to. It's something I'm told is evil. It's something that I'm told I shouldn't talk to. I create up all this makeup in the background, and then I project this picture and say, I'm afraid of that. Well, let's decompartmentalize that. Let's take that away. Well, it's never done anything harmful to me. It's never scratched me. It's never choked me. It's never growled at me. It's never done anything that shows that it's evil. Okay, well, let's eliminate evil. Being told it can't happen. Well, I know I'm not imagining it, so let's eliminate that. And I start to take away these pieces. I'm like, okay, well, then we're just dealing with raw fucking spiritual currents right now. And if they're here and I'm able to communicate with them, then shouldn't I? You know what I mean? If it's something naturally existing in the world and spirits are everywhere and you can talk with them, they can answer you, they can knock when you talk to them, they can say something out loud in some cases or on a recorder. If you're able to communicate with these things, then why should we treat it that we shouldn't talk to them? They're there. So get out there, explore, connect, convene, converse, and commune. Make communication with them and talk to them, and you'll discover that there are things around you a lot of times. People afraid of spirits is because they just don't know them. They're afraid that their worldview is going to change. I don't think they're afraid of the spirits as much as they are of breaking their comfortable picture of reality. Brett says they are here. Connect. Brett sees the dead, so Britt has a nice connection with the spirits as well. Now, what's very strange about my connection, I'll be the first to tell you, when I was a child, seeing the spirits was like second nature. Constantly was seeing them. It was, honestly, looking back, it was amazing how much visualization of phenomena I was experiencing. Now, as I've gotten older, my sight has gone away in a lot of degrees. When I'm doing ritual and I'm very focused and in a hypnagogic state, I can see in the scrying mirror, see different things moving around the temple. I can experience in that fashion. I still hear things and feel things, but the sight is not near as common. It's rare cases that I catch a full-blown glimpse of something outside of ritual. In ritual, I can. But I always found that fascinating that as a child, I could see so clearly. As an adult, my other faculties of hearing and feeling took over, but my sight kind of has gone dim unless in ritual or on off chances. It's strange. Marco says, great conversation, perfect timing. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, we're just talking a little bit about my childhood home. I had a very unique experience growing up, or experiences. I miss that house sometimes. My mom still owns it. I don't go back. I still see my mom. We see each other, but I don't go back. I told her sometime, and I mean, things haven't happened in years, which is really strange. And it's one of those things that paranormal researchers can kind of conversate on and try to hypothesize. When me and my brothers were growing up, it was extremely active. When my mom, my dad, and my brothers were all there, all five of us, very active. My dad left, still active. My brother Jake moved out. He got, graduated school. He was old enough, still active. My brother Eric left, still active. During my high school years, fucking bonkers, berserk, crazy. And then I grew up and moved out, and then it all stopped. Slowly went away. And my mom says she hasn't experienced anything there in years. I always said, I want to come back and do a night of researching. And she's like, no, I'd rather you just leave it alone. She lives there by herself now, and she's like, I would rather just, yeah, fucking leave it alone, Garrett. So I have done that. I've left her house alone. I see here it says, I only see when they want and allow. Some people think I see dead like everywhere. No, it's not like it. No, I understand. It is. It's once they want to be seen. If you are in tune enough and they know you can see them, they will allow you to be seen. Now it's rare for me to all of a sudden, poof, there's one. That just doesn't happen that often. But in ritual, like I said, whenever I'm grounding myself and centering, whenever I'm putting myself into altered states of consciousness and stealing the world, and I'm focusing on ritual and entities that I'm calling and conjuring in, I lock into that stream of consciousness, that current of energy. But I live in a haunted house now, and all kinds of weird shit happens, but I don't see them that often. Though one night, I did put my son down for the night. And I walked out of his bedroom, and as I walked out, I pulled the door shut behind me. And out of this side, as I turned and pulled the door shut, I watched something coming straight at me, enough that I actually pulled back. Like, it was so sudden that I didn't know if my wife was like walking at me real quick or what. All of a sudden, I just seen something coming at me. And I put my hands up and I watched it turn and go straight down the stairs. I'm talking like a right down. So I covered up, and by the time I looked back, I'd seen it gone down the stairs and was gone. I looked down the stairs, it's pitch black down there, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I was only in the house for like 3 months. We just bought the place. And I had a couple feelings here, and I was like, I don't know if there's something here, but I felt some things. And then that happened, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? I didn't tell my wife because I didn't want her freaking out. And then I caught a picture that some of you guys have seen online that is mind-bending, of two spirits above my son while he sleeps, and one is of a haggard-faced witch. It's a witch. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And she's over top of him. Now, people said, doesn't that scare you? No, I think they're his protectors. They are not looking down at him in a malicious way. He has not been afflicted in a malicious way. In fact, I've had experiences that make me think certainly otherwise. In this picture I caught, which was a picture of his baby monitor in the middle of the night, there are two beings over top his bed keeping watch. But I woke up out of a dead sleep to all this noise. And I got out of bed and I walked around to the other side of the bed. It's because that's where the monitor is. And I looked at the monitor and I'm like half asleep and I'm like, what's going on? I seen some stuff moving, but he's not moving. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And as I'm watching, I watched something lean into the frame and then lean out. And I'm like rubbing my eyes, like, am I awake? And then I watched it lean into the screen again and lean out. And I ran back over to my side of the bed, unplugged my phone, ran back over and waited for it for like 2 minutes. Did it again. I snapped a picture. It is a full-blown woman. She leans in. It's her hair, it's her nose, it's her mouth, it's her eyes, it's her ears. It's a fucking woman, and it's a witch. And when I say witch, I mean it's the depictions of like old witches in the woods, malicious looking, but she's my son's guardian. And I've since been given information from some psychics that I think I understand a little bit more why. All right, we got a couple more comments here. She's in peace, leave her be. Yeah, I'm not bugging my mom's house anymore. She doesn't need that. I just know they are there and can't see them aside from the corner of the eye. So I just speak out loud, and if it's at work, tell them to come back for Brit. Ryan, it very much looked like what you would imagine Baba Yaga looking like that type of depiction, almost dead on that type of depiction. In fact, there's a death metal band right now called Grave Skinners or some shit like that, and they have a song called Baba Yaga, and it's actually pretty dope. I shared it a couple months ago. They were just in Pittsburgh. It looks like Baba Yaga from that video. I'll have to show you the picture sometime. It's impressive. Tobes will see stuff all the time, but it's hard to say what all the time. Hard to say what all the time. Human spirit or other. She's not a huge fan. Yeah, a lot of people aren't a fan. They start experiencing and seeing spirits, and then they're like, oh shit, I don't want this. And I can understand that, not wanting to, but at the same time, to try to hide from it's kind of silly. That's like, that just means you are open to other vibrational fields naturally, to some degree or another, than most other people. That's not a hindrance. That's not a bad thing. That means you see better. That'd be like walking outside and seeing with your very own eyes, seeing trees and this and that, and being like, I don't like it. Fucking take this away. Ugh, I don't want to see these fucking trees. You know, like, it's a part of your sight, so just embrace it. Very long comment. It's not going to pop up on the screen, so I'll have to try to read it the best I can. This one comes from Darian, and it says, wild, also quite awesome. Recently had an entity in my ex's apartment. At first, it seemed childlike and playful, rolling a ball back and forth with my stepdaughter, turning lights on and off, drawing smiley faces, etc. It would even scratch my ex's head when she was sad and tuck me in at night, laugh out loud, kind of like opposite of those Paranormal Activity movies, until one day it took a dark turn. It started getting aggressive, tearing things down, moving weapons around, scratching us, shorting out light bulbs, all the negative classics. The straw that broke the camel's back, though, was when it started consistently giving my stepdaughter night terrors, obviously possessing her, where she would wake up around the witching hour and clearly not be herself, growling and whatnot. This would also happen on quarter and full moons, by the way. I would guide her back to her body with the help of Archangel Michael, but I had had enough. I began studying how to deal with them in her house, but one night it actually followed me back to my house and threw those specific books off my shelf. Just lost where that was. Hold on a second. Because of my other experiences earlier in life, it didn't really faze me. What I did finally learn was spirit trapping, and I actually caught the entity in a jar, which I still have. At first, it would beg to be let out by activating this electronic Santa Claus statue thing. It had a pre-recorded message saying, "Let me out of here." I would just tell it, "No, you really shouldn't have fucked around." Yeah, it's still in my closet. I wouldn't recommend just randomly trapping spirits unless they are a direct threat and nothing else has worked, cleaning, saging, etc. Now, I would like to provide some insight, Darian, on what could be. It could just be that the spirit was initially playful. As you guys showed it more energy, became more accustomed to it, you gave it enough spiritual sustenance, material sustenance, that it built it up to become stronger, and then it started doing more darker deeds. Absolutely could be the case. Now, the opposite of that, though, and what could be taking place, is what I believe is the spirit at the Bel Air Demon House in Bel Air, Ohio. I believe that Emily, who pretends to be a little girl and speaks as a little girl, has the potential of maybe it was a little girl, but I don't believe so. I believe that spirit is evil. But I do believe that there is an old man that lives in that house, and I believe that on that old man is a parasitic interdimensional being that has attached itself. And I've talked about this, where you can have a hybrid. You can have the spirit of the dead that was just a prick in life and he's a prick in death and he continues to fuck with people. You can have demonic spirits, angelic spirits, interdimensional spirits, and shadow beings, elementals and so forth, jinn, that can be nice or, combative to us. Any one of those can be a separate individual category. But there are cases where in high spiritual centers of activity, where ghosts of the dead or abandoned psyches of the dead, or the abandoned psyches of the once living. We're going to word it that way. Abandoned psyches of the once living linger, and an interdimensional or parasitic entity attaches itself to it, using it as a puppet, and starts using it to afflict you and pull energy. So you could have had a spirit, potentially, that was nice, that was helping you, that was playing with your family, that was enjoying time with you, and something else came along and seen the connection that that spirit had with your family and attached to it as food, but then was using your interactions as further food, building it stronger and stronger and stronger, allowing it to fuck with you more. And that spirit of the dead was merely just the host being used to afflict fear on you guys. So what you could have trapped in the bottle was both of them, into where it probably would have drank the spirit of the abandoned psyche of the once living dead, dry. Just a thought. Some things that I've come across in my research. It's a gift. It's not easy, but it's beautiful. They need to learn a little bit. Yeah, it's something you got to adapt to. Some gifts aren't what you've asked for, but they're exactly what you need. No, she doesn't hide from it, just gets annoyed. Some naked man was puking next to her bed one night. She literally was like, "That's really annoying," and rolled over. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to show you things sometimes to get help from you, and sometimes they're just doing weird shit that you don't understand why. Okay, some messages back and forth between Natasha and Brittany. And we'll read the last couple comments. If anybody else has anything else they want to drop or say, feel free to do so. I'm going to stick around for a little bit longer, and then we'll go ahead and jump out of here. My wife drew a picture of what you described in your photo from what she's seen around our daughter when she was just born. I'll send it in Messenger and see if it's similar. My wife drew a picture of what you described in your photo. Oh, okay. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it too. Like I said, it's a fascinating picture. One of the best I've ever got. Thank you for the response and advice. Sorry for a long comment. Nah, no, bro, you're good. I was just saying it's long when you throw it up on screen. It only shows you like the first four sentences. So if anybody's reading it, they wouldn't see it all. Long comments are fine. And yeah, like I said, it could be a number of things, but I've experienced certainly parasitic entities, ghosts of the dead, elementals, and things of that nature. But I have come across that hybrid situation where it has been spirits of the dead now being host for parasitic entities. Bel Air Demon House, I will go as far as to say I very much believe that there's something in there that is a mixture of the two. And on the darker side of it, it sometimes likes to pretend it's a little girl named Emily as well, and it's not. And it does that because there once was an Emily there. So whether Emily's still slightly there and it's consumed most of her, or it just uses that as a way to get interaction out of people, it will pretend to be a little girl. One of our old episodes, which was titled I don't remember what the title of that one was actually. We talk about the fact that there was a possession, and it's in a documentary called Possessed and Oppressed in a Town Called Bel Air from Bump in the Night Society. I'm in that documentary. It featured. If you check that out and watch it, it's about a 2 hour and 20-minute video, I believe. It's a long documentary talking about experiences that I and this team had in the Bel Air Demon House with a possession where a man was talking in demonic tongue and singing old slave railroad songs and all kinds of wild shit that this cat couldn't have known. And at one point, whenever I exorcised this thing out of him, which is in the documentary, which has been talked about in multiple shows from multiple people that were there, when I performed this exorcism and it left this man's body, the whole group watched the candles start to burn extremely bright and grow. They watched this black cloud leave him, go down the hall, and vanish. Literally, seen something like out of a movie. And then he dropped back and started sobbing and looked down the hall. And he went, "That's no little girl." That's all he said. "That is no little girl." And then became hysterical. And this is after he was possessed for like 20 some minutes, 20, 25 minutes. And he was talking about the spirit that possessed him. When it left him, he blurted out, "That's no little girl." So I'm guessing before it possessed him, he probably in the house seen a little girl, and then it took him. And it's taken other people while I've been there. Second time, third time. Later on, there was a wild happening that happened there. Very unique place. I can never go back there, though. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you like my sound effects. Ooh. Telling you once again, man, this beer is like, fucking. You don't have this shit for a few years and then you have it again. It's like fucking butt water. Hey, click the wrong comment. Hey, Kyle, thank you for tuning in, brother. Appreciate all you guys watching. Like I said, anything else you want to ask or say, comment, throw them in. We'll stick around for a few more, chit-chat a little bit. I appreciate you guys watching, getting to shoot to breeze. Like I said, last 2 weeks I've been taken with other things. Britt, Natasha, Ken, Sue, Tom, and myself took a trip to Circleville, Ohio, a town with the single most amount of trains in any 1 hour and any one 24-hour period. And had a really good time there, stayed in a mansion there, enjoyed ourselves, went and investigated the Octagon House for 2 days. And then last week I was on Exploring the Unknown, which was a great episode. We talk about all kinds of different things. So if you guys want to catch a good episode with me as the special guest, check out Exploring the Underground on Facebook, and you'll catch the latest episode. I think it was episode 24 of their show. Now, you guys, there's a handful of you watching right now. Tell me if you want to hear one more from me. I don't want to bug you and bore you with another story, but if you guys want to hear one more, I got one more about Circleville, Ohio. I talked a little bit about it on Exploring the Unknown, but I will tell you the story of what we experienced 2 weeks ago, which was pretty fucking insane. Natasha says, this is why I don't worry about investigations. If I need an exorcism, it's all good. Laugh aloud. I mean, all jokes aside, I have been witness to many exorcisms, or witness to many possessions, excuse me. Only ever performed one straight up exorcisms. I've helped spirits back out of someone, helped someone come back from spiritual possession. That's different. There was only ever one situation that I consider like pulling a spirit out of someone's body, forcing it out of his body, and that was that experience at the Bel Air Demon House. But I've seen possession. I've been possessed. It's not as big of a deal as a lot of people make it, but when they come in unwantingly, unwarranted, and they don't want to let go, and they're fucking with you and making you do facial contortions and making all kinds of fucking movements like a chicken, then usually it's pretty violent possession, and that's not good. So we got some yeses. Paul said yes. Darian says, yeah, bro. Ryan says, hell yeah. Bases are covered. Brittany said. So a couple weeks ago, Celestial Oddities Paris Seekers, my group, went and did a 2-day, 2-night, I should say, investigation of the Kreitz Octagon House in Circleville, Ohio, which is, hey, Bob, what's up, brother? That's my boy from way back. That was my first friend in my entire life, was Bob Long right there. Long time ago, preschool, playing on blocks on the carpet. Love you, man. And we went and investigated the C. Kreitz Octagon House. And I was there last year. Bump in the Night Society invited me as a special guest, and we had a wild 2 nights there. So I wanted to bring my group back this year. And we did that. We rented an amazing Airbnb, which was a mansion. So during the days, we got to hang out in the town and hang out in this really cool location. And then at the nights, we spent at the Octagon House. Now, night one was active. At one point through the spirit box, we heard a spirit say, get out. Natasha said, did you just tell us to get out? And then aside from the spirit box, out loud as a disembodied voice, we heard a woman from the balcony go, yeah. Really loud and clear. Awesome interaction, right? We could hear footsteps going on upstairs that weren't us. We could hear movements and knocking and some other sounds that weren't us. And that was the basis of our night one. Some footsteps, some movements, some scratching, one ghost box answer, and then a disembodied voice. Now, that should be enough to make anybody happy, and it was, but we wanted a little bit more interaction because I knew from the year before what this place can do. Well, night number 2 did not disappoint. Night number 2 was like a 2.5, 3 hour shit session of a spirit who I believe to be a priest or a highly, highly religious person came through. Now, if we set the spirit box down on the ground, it didn't happen. If we had someone else hold the spirit box, it didn't happen. But if I held the spirit box, normally a ghost box or spirit box cycles through radio stations and sound bites of radio over top of white noise. So, and if you say, like, is there someone here right now, through the and the, you would hear, yes. Like small answers that come while it's still cycling. That is not what happened. We would ask a question, and it answered us through the lyrics of songs. It's hard to explain that. We would ask a question, and then the ghost box would stop dead, not continue to cycle, stop dead on a crystal clear song, and give us one line of the song, which the lyrics of the song line would answer the question we just asked, and then it would kick back on to cycling. Sometimes it was doing multiple songs. At one point, I remember we asked a question, it was right to a song, said 3 or so words of a song line, of like a verse, jumped to another song, 2 or 3 words, jumped to another song, 2 or 3 words, and altogether said one full coherent sentence, not only within itself, but answering what we asked, stopping 3 individual times at 3 different songs, which I've never heard in years do, and then it would kick back on. At times it would kick on to radio talk show. At times it would kick on to commercials, all of which had a very, very religious and Christian Abrahamic undertone to it. What is it you want to tell me? Because I was asking it from my own perspective. It wasn't doing it for anybody else. What is it you want to tell me? Walk into the light before it's too late. You want me to walk into the light? You must find Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm talking, I have several people to back this up. You must find Jesus Christ. You must walk into the light. You are a blasphemer. You are a sinner. Beware of him. All this wild stuff. So much so that some of the members of my group, like Ken, were like, all right, you need to kind of back off, Crow. You're being a little pushy of your religious views. And it was continuing to play songs, most of which were gospel country songs. Now, at one point, it played 6 or 7 back-to-back, jumping in and out of one another, country gospel songs. Now, I don't know about you, but at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning on FM radio in any one given town, you're not finding 7 country gospel stations. Just doesn't happen. Ken was able to actually say, play classic rock. Classic rock came on. Play pop. Pop came on. Play country. Back to country. Play gospel country. It would switch instantly to gospel country. Back and forth. This was like a 2.5, 3 hour session. This spirit wasn't pulling out songs playing right now on the radio. I believe that it was literally pulling songs out of the collective unconscious and slapping them through the box. Because you couldn't have that many country songs and gospel songs at one time, at that time. It was pulling them, throwing, and not only was it being able to pull these songs that literally were matching what we were asking, like a DJ, play country, boom, country, play hip-hop, boom, hip-hop. And then we wouldn't hear hip-hop again for 20 minutes. It was only when we requested that. So when you're doing that, it only makes sense that it was pulling it out, and not only pulling out specific songs that they knew that the lyrics of the sentence would answer our question and slap them right at the right time and intermingle them. It was going forward to songs, backwards to songs. It's only supposed to go forward altogether, or you can play it backwards. It's not supposed to go forward and then on its own go backwards and then on its own go a little bit forward. The fucking box took on a life of its own. We've never, ever, in all of the years investigating, ever had a session like this, even to a slight degree, let alone almost a 2.5 hour or so session. The other wild thing is, and Natasha has it in our logbook, she takes notes of different sessions and influences and things we get while we're out at these investigations. And we said something like, is there something specific you would like us to know? And like a commercial came on, and it was like, on 123 Smith Street, come on down, you'll see what there needs to be seen. Something like that. She has it written down. So that was like, oh, that was crazy. And I'm like, 123 Smith Street? Well, 123 Smith Street where? And then instantly, different commercial. I got to stress that. Not the same commercial, different commercial. Where's 1234 Smith Street? In, I just went blank for a second. In, help me out, Natasha. Why can't I think of it's on the other side of Pennsylvania? We'll have it in a second. Look at some of these. Crazy. The spirit was very upset, says Natasha. Brittany says it was religious as hell, so you folks can see there was other people there that experienced it. Natasha said, hold on, she's looking it up. Paul said, that's fascinating. It was wild and unrelenting. Later on, I asked it to play one song that I would like, and it played a Hosier song I've had on repeat. Yeah, that's another thing. So Natasha says, play a song I would like. And it went to a song that she's literally been listening to on a playlist for a while that's didn't fit with any of the other songs. Didn't fit with the country, the gospel, the classic rock, the rap. It just pulled it out. It was like it knew what was in our minds. So it begs the question is it the places that have the spirits, or is it us? Is it like our own inner spirits interacting with ourselves as different names that we lived for as throughout our life? You know, I brought up a couple good points in a post I put up the other night. I suggest everybody go back and check on the Coterie of Samil page. When we interact with spirits, are we interacting with the dead that are out there separate from us? Are we interacting with all of our past selves? So 7 people in a room, you're interacting with every version that person has ever lived on this earth. So if I've had 100 lives, there's 100 different personalities in here that I'm not aware of on a normal sense. But when we're tapping into it together, 100 of me are coming out, 100 of them. So now we have the potential of 700 people in one room, and we just don't know it. And all these different names and experiences we're getting are all just ourselves interacting with ourselves. That's a possibility. The other one would be, are we just pulling from the collective unconscious fractals of other beings? Beings that lived in that area, beings that are dead, beings that do want to talk because they live in the cloud of the collective unconscious. And when we're together and we're jiving and we're all in that same energy bandwidth, that we're pulling out echoes that are happening from a greater power above us and bringing them through. They're not walking the hallways of the Octagon House. They're just echoed remains that still live on within us in the human experience. And we pull them out and we are playing these echoes on the lens of reality. That's something I like to contemplate on quite a bit. Natasha said, it said Main Street, 1 block from 276. Find it. It's simple. That was the message. What is it you want us to do? Is there something you want from us? Main Street, 1 block from 276. Find it. It's simple, was the commercial. And then Lancaster, that's the area. And then I says, well, where is Main Street? Main Street where? It came through and said Lancaster. And then we said, Lancaster? Did you say Lancaster? And it came through and it was another commercial. And it said, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a separate commercial, 3 different ones. How does that happen, folks? And then it said, are you on your way? I can't wait forever. And we were like, you got to be more specific. And then it said Lancaster. Okay, I had to read that other message. Yeah, but it was wild. So people hear this shit and they're like, this guy has to be on fucking drugs or has to be full of shit. And then they see all these people backing it up and people that were there and all these experiences. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. I mean, the more you immerse yourself in the currents of spirit, the more that they're there. The more you see, hear, feel, and experience, the more that others experience, the more that you have a hodgepodge of all of you together experiencing. People that don't have experiences is usually because they don't want to. They block it out. They refuse to see it, or they just never go looking for it. I've said it time and time again. A lot of naysayers say, well, I've never had experiences before. I'm like, well, when the fuck was the last time you went out and tried? When's the last time you went out into the woods? When's the last time you went to a known haunted house and sat by yourself and talked to them? I never have. Well, then shut the fuck up, because obviously that's why you're not experiencing it. It's like, I've never seen a fucking hyena before. When's the last time you went to the zoo? I never have. Well, then you're probably never going to see one, dickhead. I mean, unless you're going to the savannah and you're fucking going to see them there, the only way you're going to see them is if you go to the zoo, brother. And then the cat ball went off, and the box goes, I've been seen. Yeah, the cat box started flashing, and then that voice came through on a song and said, but these are song lyrics, folks. And some of them were talk show lyrics. I think that one was a talk show came through, and a guy just out loud said, I've been seen, right after the cat box lit up. It's just, you couldn't make it shit up if you wanted to. Thank you for the video, brother. Blessings. Absolutely, Darian. Thank you for checking it out. Spotted. Shit, he spotted me. Well, the first time, what's interesting is the first time at Circleville with Bump in the Night Society, that's all we did was see spirits walking visibly. I told you earlier I don't see them a lot of times anymore. This place was off the charts with literally seeing beings walking around on this balcony, multiple people at the same exact time, all of us turning our head at the exact same time, looking at the spirit and saying, did everybody see that? Everybody's like, do you see that? All at the same time in correlation with one another, multiple times. This time we didn't see anything, but we had some of the most intelligent verbal responses through a spirit box that are imaginable. I mean, it's interesting how that can shift. Laura says, Spirit energy is crazy over here on my end. Yeah, I mean, I know that they seem to allow you to see them quite often. So I'm sure all this conversation might be sparking something up. Take another couple minutes here, see what else comes through, and then I am closing out. It's 10:21. I'll stick around 10:30 at latest, and then we'll call it an evening. I got some shit to do before vacation coming up, but it's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys. It's always fun. It's always lively, and I'm glad you guys give me a platform and support me and allow me to just jump on here, tell you some fun stories that I've lived through, shoot the breeze, and have fun. Yeah, and Laura, you had that tornado touchdown in your town, so yeah, I'm sure that stirred up a lot of energy. Brittany says, Natasha and I felt it run down the stairs, and I almost fell and killed us both. Yeah, the stairs are treacherous. Even when you know to expect that weird turn at the bottom, still almost break a fucking ankle on them. Yeah, Laura, I'm sure that, like I said, that probably brings a lot of natural lying energy. Britt said, felt like a confession. I'm not sure which part you're saying. Like, my episode tonight felt like a confession or the spirit. But yeah, it was a very cool experience. I'm always thankful to have these experiences. My life's become a sci-fi movie, and I couldn't imagine it, nor would I want to any other way. Oh, Britt's saying it felt like a confession because they ran. Yeah, I didn't know that because they were in there by themselves. Pussies. You don't run from them. You don't run away from battle. You smash your sword off your shield. You make a fucking battle cry, and then you run into battle. It's the warrior's way. Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it. He says great stories. But no, I've enjoyed getting a chance to tell you guys about those. We got to figure some other stories coming out because I put out a list at the beginning of the year of all the ideas I had for Last Caw. And at this point, we have touched all the stories that I wanted to tell. Now, there's a million more stories, guys. Trust me, but a lot of the big ones, a lot of those real big moments that I knew you guys would want to hear about, like, I want to give you my skin. Those have been talked about at this point. So now we can start doing topic discussions where if you guys want to hear about a specific topic, what my ideas are on it, how I understand it, would always be happy to give that. I do give lectures. I do teach. I've been involved in a lot of things for a lot of years, and I'm always happy to give back in a way that take what resonates, discard the rest, question everything, including me or including our cult. Which brings up the point, if you are not following the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order on Facebook, that is the Coterie of Samil. Go give it a like and a follow. Natasha and I are co-heads of that. We run that organization. This is our public page. It is not what we do on a normal daily basis with the cult itself. This is just a page that every month we pick a specific occult topic and we deep dive into that throughout the entire month, talking about specific things, giving you guys some breadcrumbs of knowledge and understanding to help you grow. And we always say question everything. Obviously, the cult itself is a private enclosed cult in Western Pennsylvania. We are doing ritual, we're doing research, we're constantly expanding our consciousness and trying to break barriers with our actual work of occultism. But we wanted to make a page where we could give some type of breadcrumbs back to the public. You guys have been requesting it. We've been kind of contemplating on it for a while, and that's what we're doing. The month of June is the month of death reflection. We've been talking about looking at death in different ways, understanding death in different ways, not fearing it, but using it as a tool for integration and growth. Now, 2 weeks coming up next, I guess would be Monday through, let me look real quick. I have it on my calendar. From the 17th to the 1st, so that it's starting Monday, we're going to be doing death reflection. And what that means is death reflection is going to be a 2-week period where we do mindfulness, where we stare at ourselves outside of ourselves each day, all day, while constantly contemplating on the fact that this moment right here could be my very last conversation. So for instance, right now, I would look at this that once I turn this off tonight and put my headset down, I could turn around, have a heart attack, fall over, and dead. The very last thing I did in my life was talk to you fine folks, gave this episode, and this episode could be my last stance in the world. If that is the case, how would I handle this episode? What would I say? What wouldn't I say? How would I interact with you guys? How wouldn't I? How will I interact when I leave if I know that death's just looming around the corner? How will I finish my night? How will I start my morning? And for 14 days, I want us to take very, very serious account of who we are, how we interact throughout our day, why we do the things we do, why we like and dislike the things we like and dislike, and how constantly keeping death right over your shoulder, breathing on your neck, changes that. Keep a logbook, your own personal journal of that, and jot down throughout the day different moments that stood out to you. It doesn't have to be every moment of the day, but at the end of the day, each day, you should be able to sit down and reflect back on your day and pick out the top 2 to 4 moments throughout that day that you did it a little bit differently because of your contemplation of death behind you. And at the end of a 14-day span, you should be able to look back and see all these ways that you acted differently. Was that 2 weeks beneficial for you? Did you live life better? Did you act differently? Do you like the person you've become over those 2 weeks? Or was it horrible? It was painful. It was something you didn't like and you never want to do it again. Either way, there's growth in it. Either way, there's contemplation, reflection, integration, and understanding. And that's what we need to try to take out of this. So those are still open. I'll be messaging everybody over the next few days, letting them know how we can go about this. It's no big secret. It's really your work. I'm not going to hold your hand throughout it. I'm not going to message you every day. I'm not going to make sure you're keeping up with your journey and journaling. I'm not going to send you all kinds of sound clips to meditate to. You should be meditating for at least 20 minutes every day. And you should be journaling every day. And you should constantly throughout the day reflect on death. And if you can't seem to do it yourself, then you need to get a big pink-ass ribbon or a bow or some type of multicolored thing like this one that says, I am a or I am a mermaid that my daughter put on me. Have something that you're going to look down throughout the day as you're working and see it and say, oh, that reminds me, death's right behind me. Oh, I'm working right now, I'm taking phone calls, oh, death's right behind me during this phone call. Oh, I'm working on my car, oh, I'm getting gas, oh, I'm running to the grocery store. Death is right behind me. How will I act in this moment? Some might think this is useless, but to those that understand, this is a very, very powerful reflection, very powerful exercise of mindfulness. And I guarantee if you take it serious and you do it properly, at the end of 14 days, you're going to look back and say, holy shit, I was very much different over the last 2 weeks than I normally am. Well, then you realize that you're just living a program day in and day out over and over and over again, and you fall into the same rut every day, so you never try to get out of it. If you sled ride down the hill over and over again, you're always going to go right back into the same channel that you've created, same channel. This is to smooth the hill over, lay down new, fresh snow, and now you can take any path you want. And knowing that you can, breaking that dogma that you create within yourself that you always have to be the same person every day, believe the same things, you can then integrate new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of acting, new ways of talking, and just become something else, something maybe greater, hopefully greater. And that's the whole point of this exercise. I want to give you my skin, Kyle P. says. Yeah, that shit was wild. Brittany said raccoons. There was raccoons at the Octagon House too, so I mean that definitely was a part of it. But a lot of what we experienced certainly wasn't raccoons, or if they were very, very biblical raccoons, which actually scares me more than a spirit of the dead. I mean, if you think of a extremely evangelist raccoon pod, like a whole family of evangelist raccoons, that shit right there is the stuff nightmares are made of. I personally suggest you carry a notebook. This will give you a space for what comes up. And yeah, everyone should carry a notebook in a little backpack with them throughout the week, at work, wherever you're doing, in your car. And then if you have one of those pivotal moments, holy fuck, everything was just different because of me reflecting on death, pull your car over into a parking lot of a local building, local shop. Pull your notebook out, jot it down real quick, and then drive again. Might delay your ride 2 minutes, but I'm sure you can spare 2 minutes. And that's the thing, is people always are like, my life's so busy, I can't spare free time. Fuck off. Do you have any idea how much I'm involved in? And I still make time for everything. So I don't want to hear that. If you want to grow, you'll take the steps to grow. Someone ended up with 3 trampolines in their yard from the tornado that happened 4 blocks away from you. That person's going to have a fucking trampoline park going on. Start charging admission. All right, guys, looking at the last couple comments and I'm out of here. I'm terrified of Mormon raccoons. You get a knock on the door, you open it up and you're looking out and you don't see anybody and you're like, what the fuck? And then you feel someone tug on your pant leg. You look down and it's just a raccoon holding a little Mormon Bible, and he says, hi, sir. Anybody talk to you about your Lord and Savior? Trash panda? Fucking boot him back, shut the door. The raccoons sounded like fucking demons on the ceiling until we found out it was a raccoon. Yeah, they were loud. Happy kids. Well, listen, guys, I think we'll cut that here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Appreciate it. Share it around. Click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons. Tune in next episode, which I would imagine, let me look at my calendar real quick. It won't be next Thursday as I'm out of town. The following Thursday, it should be. So come back and join me on the 27th of June for another great episode of Last Caw. Caw! Brought to you by Celestial Oddities and the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order. Give Celestial Oddities radio page a like on Facebook, and make sure to click the like and follow button on the Coterie of Samil Occult page on Facebook as well. Of course, raccoons are trash pandas, Laura. Have a good one, Brett. Later, Kyle. Everyone meditate on death with us. It's worth it. Starting Monday. Hit me up if you still want a slot. I'm going to keep everybody in a little group. We're going to make a little chat stream. Talk about our experiences so you're not alone in this. Do the work alone. Together we come together and talk about it. Let me know. Love you guys. Have a wonderful night. Wonderful upcoming weekend.